So you're running a read-only node connected to testnet.
Yep.
Where is this machine?
In Paris.
I mean, is it locally on your network or because you must have inbound connection?
Yes, it's not DigitalOcean, it's Scaleway, which is a web hoster. So basically, it is a 4 gigabytes with a 3 cores machine. So maybe I'll upgrade it to 8 gigabytes later. But right now, I'm just trying to run it on a 4 gigabyte.
Mm. And okay, yeah. So you don't have a firewall for these ports, and
you're on mute, Raphael.
I opened the ports from 400 to 404. So it's quite open.
The major ports are 400 and 401. No, 404 for discovery.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, did you try? I commented in Discord. Did you try without specifying host and local
Yep,
network?
I launched it a bit earlier, like 20 minutes. So maybe I'll check it now.
You should see this immediately. You should see that you are one of the peers, and you should see that node is, receiving blocks, requesting blocks and receiving blocks. So this should happen immediately.
Hey, I thought we had a requirement for, excuse me, for over a year now, that you needed a minimum of 8 gigs. I actually don't think this is going to run in 4 gigs.
I think it would start, and maybe because this is a read-only node, maybe it could run with a little less.
Maybe,
but
yeah, but I would, if there's going to be issues, I would kind of look at the memory as one of the main culprits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, sure. And with Scaleway, my friend was also trying when we was in Berlin with Scaleway, and that was disaster because it seems that they have these machines, something or very small, and it's not exactly what we were expecting. So just something that you can be aware of.
Yeah, although Chris Williams got it to work on a Raspberry Pi, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a long time ago. So
yeah.
Oh, this is done by K1.
The last time I was watching,
no, Chris Williams. Chris Williams. Yeah.
Oh, he was running on Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, yeah. Money Bags or whatever his handle is.
Coincatcher.
Coincatcher. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Money Bag. I like Money Bags.
That's a new one. I thought it was Mr. Money.
Mr. Money Changer.
Yeah, Mr. Money Changer. Yeah, something like that. Anyway. Yeah.
He's one of our Tampa.
Yeah.
Enthusiasts.
Yep.
Drops in.
Did he publish something about that?
Yes, he has 2 posts on the ArtChain blog on everything that he did to set it up. So there's part 1, part 2, and I even think there's part 3. It's been a while since I've looked at it. Yeah.
Nice. I'm not aware of that, so yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah, I'm not sure how useful the information would be today. Everything's changed, but that's how it worked at that time.
But something can be useful, yeah. Hi, Gary.
The last time I was monitoring the memory usage, it seemed to be very stable. I guess it would grow, but it certainly as blocks were added, there was no linear growth of memory. I guess it depends on the biggest thing you've ever accessed. I don't know.
So yeah, I want to say something about that because we have APIs to so you can get the private names with listenForDataAtName and listen for continuation at name, and these endpoints are pretty dangerous, because you can request from node, take a look in all blocks. And this is really not desirable because each request will iterate through all the history and through all the blocks. So we need to restrict access. And I was looking, how to do this, and I don't have like very nice solution. So I'm also here to ask, we need to restrict something. So I was thinking that maybe for validator node we can just restrict the depth what you can inspect. So only few blocks in the past you can ask for data, because I'm not sure that we want just to close all the these kind of requests to validators. Maybe I'm not sure Rafael, what you think. You are using listenForDataAtName for something or for Arch and Wallet, or so what do you think?
Raphael might have stepped away. So help me to understand, we brought up this issue regarding listenForDataAtName and the depths. And I really don't have a good understanding of what that function does and the problems associated with going at a deeper depth. So this is so am I correct? This is for listenDataAtName, and when we talk about depths, that's the depth of the blocks that we're looking for the data. Is that correct?
Yes, you're right. So in a sense, you're writing a query, and you're saying, oh, give me the data on this name, and search all of these blocks. This number of blocks in the past, the depth.
Okay,
and
so are these the most recent blocks? So it's most recent blocks back maybe 8, or is it somewhere further back in the past? At what point in time?
For now, the depth is only for the last, this last number of blocks.
The last, okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome.
I'm sorry, I have my computer crashing.
Oh, yes. We were just discussing listenForDataAtName and the depth, and I'm trying to get an understanding of what the challenges are around that. So it makes sense with if you go from depth of 4 to depth of 10, that's going to be more resource intensive, having to explore all of those additional blocks, and that's resource intensive on whose part? Is it the validator's part or our chain's part? Who
So yeah, this is exactly what Node is executing. So
okay.
Node is creating blocks and doing all of these normal things, and then from outside he receives this request to search for the data in some block in the past. So
Okay.
Current code is not optimized at all. So each request will create another like thread to traverse all of the blocks and search for data, and then collect all of these blocks in the data, and then this will be returned to the client.
And when you say that the code's not optimized, that it's searching, so depth of 8 is searching those eight blocks, but it's not doing it efficiently, essentially? Is that the thought?
Yeah, our block storage is really just the blobs of the whole block. So searching the blocks really means reading the whole block, parsing everything, loading to the memory, finding if we have something, go to the another block, or no, even worse. We first load all of the depth for all of the blocks into memory. And after we
Okay.
load everything, then we go block by block and search for the data.
Okay.
And also, if two processes are loading the same thing, right? Because we only have one chain of blocks or DAG of blocks. So if another request comes for the same thing, the process will start again and load everything again. So it's totally not optimized.
Inefficiencies there.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So good. So that's something that the dev team recognizes. Hey, this needs to be addressed. And is this something of as far as what's the level of urgency of when, as we get close to mainnet, at what point in time in the future will we need to start working on that, and how long do we think it might be take to improve the situation?
Oh, this is something that I'm working right now. So we want to close this, because I showed that I can kill the whole testnet, with that.
Okay.
With 100 requests, I can kill the node and do this for every node. So
gotcha.
Something
Okay.
that I really like to close. And
Very good.
also we have for read-only node, we also have the same concern, but the read-only node is not so important. So, but the same concern is there. Okay. And the only situation where you want to have full access, and this is why this is not easy to just implement in some kind of configuration parameter. Because if you're running this locally, you don't want any restrictions, because this is your own node and you want to do everything. So if you create a request, you will know what you're doing. So this is only concerned with public nodes, and you want to have some kind of control.
Right. Okay. Very helpful. Thank you for the explanation.
So my question is, what would be the best way to do it? I don't want to just kill all of the endpoints and say, you cannot do it anymore on the validator, but maybe is it useful to just have, last 5 blocks? So if you want to have a quick confirmation directly on the validator, you can still use listenForDataAtName, but
so maybe I can speak about what I'm doing, because it's highly related to this subject. So of course, I'm playing with, I'm relying on the listenForDataAtName API, and but I'm preparing the transition to a new system of addressing, which I called it the rholang file module. Basically, it relies on the registry instead of unforgeable names. This means that in order for a third-party application like Dappy to load files or to read from the blockchain, we will be able to do it through exploratory deploy instead of listenForDataAtName. But the registry URIs not being predictable, I still need to rely on the listenForDataAtName. But basically, the news is that, as you said, Tomislav, we don't need a depth of 200, for example. We only need to do requests for recent deploy, and then we can recover the registry URI, which we could not have predicted in the past. And then when we have it, basically, we don't need listenForDataAtName anymore, because we have the registry URI, and we can add files or read files with deploy and exploratory deploys. So yes, exactly. Right now, since I'm preparing this transition for all the Dappy-related libraries, I set a depth of 10, but I guess 5, even 5 would be sufficient, or even 2, because I'm asking the blockchain every 15 seconds. So I guess a depth of 5 or 10 is way enough for getting some value with listenForDataAtName. So that's my take on it.
Okay, yeah, that's useful information. Yeah.
You might have to, temporarily have a start parameter or a configuration parameter for how far back you allow.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And I guess the methodology. What if you want to, have something happen after a long period? Have a very long running process. How do you? How can you be triggered on that event? And that goes back to another problem that I'm concerned about at some point is the log. I mean, the applications in Ethereum depend heavily on the log, and we don't have the ability to do that with our chain. And we can make
Sorry, can you? Did you say a log or login? I'm not sure.
A log, yeah.
And the log, you mean transaction log or?
Transaction log.
So yeah, we don't have nice interface for that, and this is something that
it's not trustable. I mean, we don't know. It all can be forged.
You're saying the log forged?
Yeah, the log entries can be forged. We don't know what they are. I mean, we can output stuff to the log from our contracts, but we don't have the exclusive right to write them to the log. And I mean, we can sign stuff that we put on the log. It's pretty cumbersome, though.
So you mean the log as a tuple space, or the log as the blocks, or?
The log set for processing events.
Oh, you mean like a log of COM events, right?
Well, I don't think we want that granularity, that fine a granularity. I think we can explicitly write the log, just like on Ethereum. We have an event, so it gets written to the log. We trigger an event.
So yeah, the exploratory. I think you mentioned the important point. Exploratory deploys are something into that direction, right? Because we can do better than Ethereum. We have concurrent machine, and we can use the same language to process these logs. So with exploratory deploy now, you're executing rholang code, get some data, and return back to you, right? But you can imagine in the future more advanced version of exploratory deploy.
Well, that's like polling. That's like polling. You're polling the system to see if you can to see the state or whatever. But there's nothing. It doesn't. There's nothing that comes out of it. I mean, what drives most applications on Ethereum is the log.
So yeah. So you can imagine that you can deploy a contract which is a persistent continuation, right? So this is like a contract that you put in your exploratory deploy, and this contract can connect to your web application or to your application via some protocol or web sockets, and you can then accept push messages from the rholang code. So you can
which is going to cost money. I mean, the main thing about the Ethereum log is it doesn't cost anything to access the log.
So I'm talking about exploratory deploy. So you will doing this on your own node. So this is not something that you will execute on the blockchain, right? You just want to observe changes on the blockchain. So if you are doing this on read-only node, you are paying the electricity for this node and computation. So
all right. Speaking of deploys, while I'm thinking of it here, I just did some testing after quite a while, and I discovered we added this valid after block number that we have. Here, I guess we're trying to say don't look back to the beginning. The same thing that we were just talking about, sort of. What is it? Why do we have to know what the current block number is? I mean, if anything, you should see this should be a relative amount, like minus 10, the last 10 blocks.
So the purpose, the purpose of this parameter is to be like a nonce. So you can say, we need to check if you are deploying this like duplicated deploy. And so we don't want to allow duplicated deploys, right? If we don't have this parameter, we need to check all of the deploys to the beginning of the Genesis. So to mitigate this expensive operation, we have this valid after block number parameter. And this parameter works only 50 blocks in the past. So if you are replaying the same deploy more than 50 blocks in the past, this deploy will not be valid. So we don't need to check more than 50 blocks in the past.
Yeah, if you don't put this parameter, it just does. It never does your deploy. It doesn't.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
I know this is a little confusing because this check is happening when a block is created and not when a deploy is accepted. So
I don't know how the application is going to know. I don't know. I guess
you can query the blocks, and you can find out what is the last block, and you can take this block number. And because we have this window of 50 blocks, you don't need to be super accurate, right? You can miss few blocks, and this will still work.
Jim, imagine a node. You are deploying to node 1.testnet. Imagine in the future that this node is malicious and it will keep your transaction and not transmit it to the network. If you have not this valid after block number, it will be able to propagate it 6 months or 1 year later, and we don't want that. So this feature is very very cool.
So I don't know what this error is. Okay, now, so here I deployed this, and eventually, I guess it doesn't. And the problem is that the private key that I used to deploy it doesn't have any money. But I don't see anything in the log here that tells me that it failed. I mean, according to the console log, it had success.
Yeah, and from the perspective of Node, this is like okay thing to do, right? You try to deploy something, you don't have anything, and in pre-charge, in the log we should see pre-charge for this deploy. This is the only thing that we will see happened. And this will fail because you don't have anything on your account, and your deploy will be your deploy.
Well,
why
doesn't it print out an error message or fail?
So okay. Now I think I understand what you are saying. If you want to find out what happened with your deploy, you can just search the last block that your deploy is created, and you will find out what happened. So when you deploy something, right, you need to wait until this block is created where your deploy is, and then you query this block, and you will see all of the deploys inside the block, and you will see if you have an error or what happened.
I think Jim would like to receive the error when he deploys and not to catch it later.
So the command line then is now useless.
So, but Jim, you are doing asynchronous operation. So node is not doing anything with your deploy until he tries to create a block. So your deploy is just waiting on the queue. So node doesn't know that anything is wrong with your deploy. So it just can say, okay, success, I received your deploy. And when you're looking in the node log, this will not be allowed, right? On mainnet, you will not see the log or logs of the nodes. So you cannot rely on the output log. You need to use API to get the data.
Yeah. Well.
And now with HTTP API, you can easily query the blocks. You can just say /API /blocks and / how many blocks in the past you want. This is also.
I can help you, Jim, with that. I'm doing this in my code.
Thank you.
From the command line, yeah. You can get show blocks and inspect the block. But yeah, I'm saying this is not, we don't have very nice interface to do this, right? We don't have like a very nice function that you can say, oh, this is my signature of deploy, give me all of the information. That would be useful because now you need to parse the whole block, and which is not really nice. You need to, especially if you want to inspect what deploy are doing.
I question the wisdom of not creating an Ethereum-like block. I mean, I think it's a very useful thing. I think it's something we should have. It's, I think it, it solves a lot of issues more simply.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Event handling and synchronizing, coordinating with external applications.
Yeah. We have rholang, which can do all of these things, and we don't have anything inside this rholang to do this. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, the outside role isn't rholang yet. It would be nice if it just had a log that it could trust.
But now we have WebSockets where you can listen for the block when block is created. But now we have different functionalities on different protocols, and you need to manage all of this. And so I'm thinking that we should have one API which is available for all of the protocols. So you can choose whatever you want. You don't need to work with one protocol if you want to run functionality. So this is something that is on the radar too.
Yeah. Well, I guess if we document well, how, a standard way of handling events, like if we know, it seems like if we're waiting, we have events that happen once a year, and we have to have something listening on that for a whole year, or the 10,000 blocks in between. I don't know.
Yes, so as I understand it, those features will be sort of bricks that you can add to your personal node, but it will not be handled as a general network feature. So I think that's the thing.
Yeah, we have machine that works and do computation on the blockchain, and we should be able to create something that listens all of the events, as you said, and we should be able to do this in more than one way, right?
Yeah.
You can write some rholang code and send data, or you can.
If it just seems to me, if you have the log, you've got it all. You don't need anything else. You've got a log of
So
that every node has the same log, and it's it's a basic, it's a truth that goes beyond, that is not that's proved by the blockchain. But it's it's information that's kept off the blockchain, whatever.
I'm confused. I thought we had logs.
Blocks. We have blocks where you can inspect all of the deploys, and if you want to, we don't have interface to what you are saying, like proof of execution. This is like a tuple space, right? When you can somehow get this information. So because our execution trace, our transactions in rholang is really the tuple space. So in a sense, exploratory deploy, when you execute the rholang, you are inspecting the tuple space. So you can imagine that exploratory deploy, you can supply a specific hash in the past where you want to inspect something, and then you can execute rholang code and get all of the data that are on that block. So in that sense, you are searching the log, or if you put some continuation on some point, you can really wait for any event that happens in the tuple space. So we can do better thing than Ethereum, not just inspecting that. But we have very lousy interface to do this. So exploratory deploys is like first step, and But you are completely right.
Yeah.
One thing we're going to really have to do is document this, because I mean, everything you just said, I just have concern that the average developer is going to even know to look at something like that. So
yeah, we don't have it. So now it's exploratory deploy is just something that we introduced, to simplify how to get the balance for rev balance. So it's not the full featured part of it.
There's how does the exploratory deploy really differ from an eval on a read-only node?
It's really the same thing, but you are executing your code as part of the the blockchain, and eval is something that is not connected to the blockchain. But they are almost the same, right? You are saying on this point in the history, execute my rholang code. Whatever you find out in that moment, give me back, or I want to collect something or do something. So you're not creating a real deploy to change something. Your deploy is just as Rafael said, it's like a ghost deploy. It will be executed and vanish, and nothing.
Okay.
So, and also it would be useful if you can execute this deploy and see what is the cost, for example, to inspect, to see, what will happen if I execute my code, But for now, we don't have all of this information. Now it's.
So the difference is that the eval does change the state of that node, whereas the deploy doesn't. The mock deploy, whatever.
Yes. It's just for you as a client to grab some data, on some name, and now you can only do this for public names. So this is why Rafael is using registry. So he can manage some state of his application on the blockchain, and this is something that we need to better document, you know, how to do this, because
Right.
now you have your own program on the blockchain. This is your backend where you are storing the data and everything, you know.
Yeah.
And you can say to your users, not only that you have some backend service, you can say, oh, this is the proof that my backend service is working as I said. This is on the blockchain.
Maybe I can introduce the file module I talked about a bit earlier, because you did not show up last week to Mislav. So I'll show you quickly.
Yeah, sure.
And to the others also. So yes, so today I posted a message on a public testnet channel about file upload on the blockchain, which is one of the features of Dappy. Dappy needs file upload on the blockchain. So basically, I can demo it very quickly right now. So I'm going to, okay, dev. I'm going to upload at first a small file, which is 7 kilobytes, that one. So it is the monster file here. Okay, so
can you say what are you doing? So you have your contract registered on the registry, right? This is your backend application on the blockchain.
So yes, I'm going to deploy it on the testnet. So basically, I'm just going to use a CLI which will deploy some rholang code, and this expression will be replaced by a big base64 chunk, which is finally my file. So I'm going to use this Dappy util push file monster, and then of course
are you creating new record in the registry, or you're storing this inside the existing record?
No, this is old school file upload, which means it does not use the registry yet.
Okay.
But I just want to show it on the testnet because previously I did it on some local network. So when I hit enter, it asks me to input my private key, which I will do. Okay, so, and we should see it in the logs. I'll just reload this page, which is the logs of node 2. Okay. Okay, so it will deploy through the HTTP API to this node. So the port is 4043. And so I have a warning which tells me that it is unable to propose, which is normal because this node does not allow third-party applications to propose. It is a private behavior. And right here, we can see that my file has been deployed. So as we saw with Jim, I received a success answer, but I'm not sure yet that my deploy will be processed. So I have to wait. And instead of checking the logs, what this CLI does is polling, and it is, so I might show you the code. It is listenForDataAtName every 15 seconds. So it tells me that it will check it every 15 seconds until it finds something. And finally, so my deploy.
Can you just I wanted for you to say, you know, what are you waiting, right? You put something in your deploy. You put something in the private name, right? And now this private name in the next block that is proposed, this private name will have your data, right?
Yes. So let's look at the logs again. Yes, you are right. I might be speaking too fast. So I'm sending my file to this private name, which is the file private name that I have initiated here. And so this is my file. And basically, what I'm doing after I have deployed it is getting not exactly the value on this one, but the value on the basket channel, which contains a reference to the file. So basically on the basket channel, I send a rholang map, which contains the file address, which is the unforgeable name ID, and also the registry URI. And when I just deploy, there is nothing on this channel, so I have to wait for it to be processed and to be included into a block. This is why I do the same call every 15 seconds. And right now, I do it, as we saw, with a depth of 10. And Jim, I might show you how I get the, so basically the valid after block value, I get it simply with this call, which is very simple. So so it uses ArchChain Toolkit, but basically it's URL slash API slash blocks slash one, and I parse this answer to get the block number of the more recent block. And then so basically I use the utils I built, which is ArchChain Toolkit. So then I deploy it, and then I check it every 15 seconds. And finally, I have it in my logs. So it tells me that the basket unforgeable name, which I predicted using the prepare deploy API, has been found on the blockchain. And those are the two values that are stored on this rholang map. And now that I have it, I can do from any third-party application, I can do read requests to get the value of this file. So as we okay, so is it okay?
Yeah, great. And so when you acquire this information, you queried the last block on this validator, but you cannot still be sure that this data is on the will be on the blockchain, because this block can become orphaned in the future. So this way of getting data is really the quickest way to find some information. Oh, is my deploy failed on this first phase? But you still need information if this block is finalized, where you get your information.
Okay, so basically I'm not checking it yet, and but yes, the next step, so as I said, is to transit to a new system, which is not on unforgeable names, but instead it is based on registry URIs. So what does this mean? So it means that when we want to read a file from the blockchain, we are not dependent on the listenForDataAtName API, but instead we will rely on the explore deploy API. This is the explore deploy API implemented in ArchChain Toolkit. So basically, we will just execute rholang and get the value from the blockchain through the registry URI addressing system. So I might just show you I will show you the README file very quickly. So basically, instead of unforgeable names, you have a big map that is stored in the registry. It belongs to a unique public key, and files are indexed using a name. So
you're not relying on some unforgeable name naming inside the rholang. You can choose your own naming or unique identifiers, right? Sorry, you're muted.
Okay, yes. So this will be the chunk of code that is needed to be executed when you want to get some file from the blockchain. So of course, this is exploratory deploy, so it cannot be addressed to validator nodes. You need to have a read-only node. So that's what I'm I'm setting up right now a read-only node which is tied to the testnet. But yes, basically, this new system should be very much more handy to play with. Could it be for writing to the blockchain, so uploading files, or to read from it? Because the addressing system is a bit cooler because it includes some personal names you can give to the files, and it might also include some folders. So basically, you can have an address which is this is the registry URI dot folder 01 dot file 01, and then the exploratory deploy will reflect this this query inside the map that is stored on the registry URI. So that's it.
Nice.
I'll push it to GitHub very soon. I just have, of course, to test it first. So when my read-only node is working, I test it, and I'll migrate all the Dappy address system to this system instead of unforgeable names.
Nice. Yeah, this is very nice. And how will you protect who can write to these files? And you will have your own contract who is doing this, right?
Okay, so right now I'm doing it in a I would call it a partial cryptographic way because it's not ideal, but it includes a nonce. So basically, when you deploy a file, this is the contract. When yes, this is the contract. So when you deploy it at first, you set a unique nonce that you can obtain with some basic cryptographic functions. And every time you have to perform an operations to this map, you have to provide a signature of this nonce that has been issued with the private key that corresponds to, of course, to the public key that is stored here. So this value gets replaced before deployment. So basically, I have a unique public key, a unique nonce, and every time I want to update a file or upload a new file, I have to provide a signature of this nonce with the private key, and also a new nonce that will be required to be signed for the next deploy. Yes, this is not very much. This is not completed because the payload is not signed. So basically, if I look at the file, add file, the signature here is just the signature of the current nonce, but it is not the signature of all the payload. This is why I had a problem, Tomislav, with getting a valid signature of objects outside of rholang. So when I manage to do that, I will be able to provide a signature for the entire payload. And in the rholang file, I will check the signature, not against a hash of the nonce, but against the payload in its totality.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Cool. Yeah. And you can use a hash of this payload to like a key, right? In this map also. This is like a unique identifier for this payload.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
That will be the case. I will do it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Now, if you want to create the signature of the whole payload, you need to construct really the protobuf object. You know, you need to work with protobuf objects in your language, and this is in JavaScript. Yeah, it's not super nice.
Yeah. For example, yes, you might just take a look. So you input your private key, and I generate the signature very simply with a hash of this string. And what changes is now we want a hash of the total payload. So this is what I will be working on, but this nonce solution is decent enough for a demo of the file module. It works, and I will keep this solution for a few weeks, and when I have enough time, I will change it. So that's it. And yes, so I just show you the upload of a small file, but I can also upload a bigger file. So for example, I will upload this file, which is 200 kilobytes. It is not the monster file.
Yeah. Did you try some limits to see what is the limit?
Yes, I think this file is the deployment of this file costs 990 units. So basically, it's very close to the 1 million flow limit that I set up when I deploy. So I think, so I also tested with a 700 kilobytes, but it is not, the deploy is accepted, but it is not included into a block. So basically, I just wait forever. But with 200 kilobytes, it works well. So we might show.
So why is not included this larger deploy? I mean.
So this is the file. So I'm taking up all the space in the log. It's fun. And it should be accepted. So let's wait, I think 1 minute, and it will be okay. But basically, so this is 200 kilobytes, but it's great because for the regular Dappy web application or Dappy file, it will be primarily small files. So basically, a web application, CSS plus JavaScript plus HTML, it should be around 10 kilobytes. So it's perfectly fine, and the results I got from this morning are very very encouraging, very great.
Cool, nice. Thanks, Rafael. Yeah, that was very nice explanation. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Raphael.
Okay, so the next one should be okay. Nope.
Sorry?
Will we have it? Maybe not. Okay.
You're waiting for the next block, right?
Yes. So yes, it came out. So that's okay.
So does this make sense? This handling this asynchronous operation that you're facing with R node. Deploy is like fire and forget. You deploy something and Jim, as you said, you have success. Whatever you deployed, you have success. So this is completely asynchronous. You're deploying something and then you need to inspect, and you need to ask the node, oh, what are you doing with my deploy? What happens? And we are addressing this with listenForDataAtName to get the quick information. Is my deploy in the next block, or if you go to the whole cycle of generating private name and then inspecting this private name, and in that case you can find out your information. And exploratory deploy is like a different way of getting the information, where you're not caring about blocks, and you're just caring about, on this block height, I want data. Whatever you have, give me this data. So Rafael could wait on read-only node for this block to be finalized, and then he could get the data. But this data must be, for now, somewhere somewhere public, like registry. So you can, with this explorer deploy, you can grab this data. You can address this channel.
Yeah. So the so my Archain wallet, Arvin's wallet. Well, I guess that doesn't. So it's doing a listen for data at name, but it doesn't mean that the block was finalized, right?
Yes, yes. But when you just create a transaction, your transaction can fail. So in that case, you want this information very quickly. You don't want to wait the finalization to find out that you have insufficient funds, and you are making transaction. So in that case, you want to have this information immediately in the next block. You know that is not finalized, but you don't care because your transactions are failed. So even if we can finalize, it still failed. So for this information, exploratory deploy is not really useful because you want this information more quickly. So just to recognize failure is listenForDataAtName is useful. So you can create another transaction and or decide or respond this information to the user and say oh, transaction failed.
So we'll be using both listenForDataAtName and exploratory deploy. listenForDataAtName is we deploy, we're not waiting for finalization, and we just want to find out if we have sufficient flow or not. So that's listenForDataAtName. Exploratory deploy is exploring, getting information based on finalized blocks.
Yeah, because exploratory deploy now uses finalized block as a input, but not as an input, but as a default hash. But we will extend exploratory deploy to accept any hash. So you can really inspect information that are not finalized also.
Ah, okay.
So for now, this is like working this way, but yeah, we will do it much more.
Good stuff.
Back.
Welcome back, Jim.
Cool.
Well, we are at top of the hour. Does anyone have any final thoughts or any comments?
I'll have to watch the video again to catch all of what Raphael was showing me there.
Yeah.
See if I can do it or not. I was hoping to get away with using the command line for now.
You can still use command line, Jim.
Yeah, I can use command line. I can get the last block and I can look for the string in it. Is that right?
Okay. Yeah. You need to parse JSON. Yeah.
I can find the deploy ID in there.
Yeah.
I will send you a file, a demo file, Jim. Very easy to edit with the rholang you want.
Oh, I couldn't hear you completely there, but
if you have Node.js on your computer, I will send you a file which is very easy and understandable.
all right.
So Jim, is it? It would be helpful if you have, like Raphael said, a very simple Node.js script where is doing this for you. Just creating a request and extracting the block. And,
yeah, I think I'm going to need that. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to get to really. I wanted to get our first art object onto the art chain as soon as possible after its mainnet's launched, which would just be a very basic, very general art object that would be customizable.
Nice. Yeah.
So we can add capability to it.
And yeah, but when I was discussing this with Raphael, you know, this file manager that he is doing, it's really related to this ERC 1155, right? It's the same spirit, right? You have your own state on the blockchain, right? These are not tokens; these are files, right? And you somehow have users, public keys who can change the stuff on inside this state, right? So
that's a good point, Jim. Maybe that's, you know, we've been speaking with our blockchain art group, maybe with Eric Drayson, bring up, I think we brought up Dappy before and its ability to store files, but we may bring that up again and kind of express, you know, there's going to be value there.
That's a good idea. I should get Dappy.
And the question I didn't have time to answer. Dan and Divorm talk about you know, how to create a transaction, how to get transactions of reps. So and how to with exploratory deploy get this information if transaction succeeds. That was the main question. You know, if you don't want to use a listenForDataAtName and you create a transaction with your deploy, so you need to store this result not in some private name that you will inspect in the next block. You need to store this in something public, right? You need your contract when you will send this result, and then with exploratory deploy you will read this result. So you need this this unique identifier of your request, right? This is really asynchronous communication. So in one request you create something unique, and then in other request your query this unique thing and say, oh, now this is like a meeting point, right? You consume this or recognize this.
Corinder's asking how much effort it is to get the MyArtchain wallet configured for mainnet. I don't know enough to know how to build it. You know, I don't know if what's on GitHub is complete.
Yeah, dude, if it is working on testnet, it's just changing the few URLs and it will work on mainnet. One thing that now that I mentioned this rev transfer logs. We have these logs on the blockchain, and this is also something that we want to show how to use it, and because this involves creating additional channel where you're storing your logs, and you need to query this log, which you can do with exploratory deploy, and you can get all of these transactions. So this is also one thing that it is not documented anywhere, and Arvin asked me, and I was occupied with the bugs, and I couldn't do anything else. So now I will try to address this.
Yeah. I guess it would be okay to discuss if they stood up the mainnet privately yesterday as planned.
We shouldn't be discussing that here, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you're recording.
Yep.
Yeah, we are definitely working on that, and
Yeah, I wouldn't say really. Jim, maybe if you guys want to turn the recording off,
Yeah,
but
let me do
this
that.
isn't a private room. We shouldn't really be talking about this.